All right, just messing around here. Let me get a little better angle. A little after work practice session. Wanted to take a look at the swing, as well as talk about the rubber band effect. Both these are on, right? Okay, hopefully those mics are working. Check, check. Love these new mics. The only issue is there's no way to tell if they're synced up and working until after the video. So just cross my fingers, I guess. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the rubber band effect and take a look at my swing. I might just do a couple short videos so I can stop and take a look. But here, let me actually hit some balls first. Just clean the 7-iron. Haven't hit any balls yet. Just took some practice swings with the old Persimmon Jack Nicklaus driver to loosen up a bit. First swing of the evening. Felt pretty good. Just a smooth little 7-iron right out the middle. Didn't leave much of a ball mark because that was a Pro V1. Here, let me grab a range ball. You can look. It's not very visible, but if you look real close, the right angle, it was dead center flush. But like I was saying, the rubber band effect kind of goes with what I've said about golf before. A lot of things are backwards from what you may think. That felt real good too. Even the range ball didn't leave much of a mark. Still centered though, right on top of the last one. Better mark. Let's get some of those range balls. So essentially your body, has natural positions, naturally square positions. For example, if I'm walking, your arms hang in a natural way. You could open them or close them, but when you relax, they snap back. So similarly in golf, you have square positions. Like when you're taking the club back, a perfect backswing is your chest is moving back, your arms and your club really aren't moving at all. If I do this correctly, the club goes back to here. It may look like it opened up and I use my arms, but I didn't. If I stand up straight and then turn this way, the club's still directly in front of me, same as it was in the beginning. I've just turned. You see the triangle that your arms and your chest form? Going back, that stays as one. The big mistake is this. So anyway, assuming a one-piece takeaway where everything's going back, ideally, the leading edge of the club is about matching your spine angle. Everyone knows that. That's very common knowledge in the golf world, but the rubber band effect isn't talked about that much. So let's say you have a little bit of a closed club face at impact. You tend to pull the ball. I definitely get that habit a little bit at times, tend to pull it. That felt good. Another one. So say you tend to pull the ball, right? Whether it's intentional or, see, that's how the range balls usually leave a nice ball mark. If it's intentional or not, you may be unintentionally kind of opening the face, fanning the club face open in the backswing. And that may seem like, okay, I got a closed club face at impact, so I'm going to, try to open it a little bit more in the backswing. But what ends up happening is, you can see if I took it back nice and square, my arms are remaining in that neutral position. But what happens if you fan it open, you're essentially rolling your arm open, rolling the club face and your arm open. So what are they going to want to do when you release? They're going to want to almost slam the door closed and release and rotate harder. And you end up with a closed face. And just the opposite, a lot of beginners, slice the ball and they think it's because of an open club face. It's usually not an open club face, by the way. It's usually an over-the-top swing path. But anyway, so they'll try to hold the club face closed by just, they turn back, but instead of turning back neutral like this, where nothing opens or closes, they turn back and they start closing their arms to keep the club face closed. And then what happens is, since they're doing this so much, when they go to swing, the club wants the arms and your club want to drop open. But since there's weight to this and there's speed to your swing, it doesn't just, if I open these, it just goes back to neutral. But since there's speed and momentum to it, it goes back to neutral and keeps going, obviously. So if you're really closed on the way back, the club's going to be very likely to want to open up on the way down. If you get the club fanning open on the way back, it's very likely to want to come over and slam shut on the way through. So a lot of it's opposite. Now, those were very exaggerated examples. It may only be a little bit. Like when I try to fan the club face open or hold it back shut, it's hardly noticeable unless you were to freeze frame it and really look at them side by side. Like here's my normal backswing. Here's me trying to fan it open. Here's me trying to keep it closed. Now that's closed right there. Normal was probably there. Fanned open was probably there. So it's really only this much of a difference. It's just a small difference. So if you have a habit of pulling the ball and you were, maybe trying to fan the club open, or maybe you were doing it unintentionally, a great feel is actually feeling like you don't let that club face fan open. You want it square ideally, but the feel, if you were fanning it open, may be almost kind of just closing it just a hair in the backswing and then letting it fall open in the downswing. See how I'm kind of holding it more closed, and then it'll be more likely to fall into an open position. And just the opposite, if you were kind of doing this with your slice, it might be worth your while to try to get that club face almost opening just a little. Obviously you don't want to roll it open. You don't want to hold it closed like this. It's just a feel, a little bit of a closed feel, or just a little bit of an opening feel. So that little bit of an opening feel is going to allow you to rotate through. Because if you just hold it closed, you got nowhere to go. You're already closed. So you're either just going to have to hold on from there, or you're going to drop and open the club face up. Here, let me try one here. Like if I was pulling it, I would feel like I keep the club face just a little bit more closed on the way back when it falls into an open position. Let's try that one. A little closed on the way back. I didn't hit it very good. Let's try another one. A little closed on the way back. There it is. That felt real good. Yeah, you can see the swing before that one was scolded the crap out of it. But don't let I've said this before, swing dynamics play such a small role in ball striking. Yes, there are fundamentals. The biggest fundamental, I truly believe, is what I'm always talking about, staying connected in that one-piece takeaway. If you're swinging like this, if I do this, to the untrained eye, it might look like a good backswing. That might look okay to some people. Where I'd actually be at this point, look at my shoulders, they've barely turned. Where I'd actually be in my swing at this point is about here. You see? And it's not just bring my arms up from there. It's the complete opposite. No arms, no arms, no arms. This triangle. See how your arms and your chest make that triangle? Bring that back as far as you can. Or another way to look at it is this front shoulder, your lead shoulder. Turn it back so it's pointing at the ball. Because another big mistake is people might turn back, but they get up here. They might kind of go like this. And they level out. And then at that point, you're either going to spin out this way, or you're going to, level out, and then you have to dip back down. So just getting a nice shoulder turn and then shoulder turn through. That's a fundamental. If you can make a nice shoulder turn back and through, it doesn't really matter what you do. You can come way out here like Matthew Wolff. You can come way inside, like a lot of old-time golfers, Bobby Jones era. So many players have been great golfers that came way inside and came over the top. Really steep. So many things, strong grips, weak grips. Grips are another thing. Yes, a little bit of a stronger or a little bit of a weaker grip will do what is commonly thought. A stronger grip will close the club face just a little bit, but be careful because it won't necessarily fix a slice. A stronger grip is actually more of a fade bias grip. Check this out. If I had a real strong grip here, and I go back, and the way the club wants to release, go in slow motion. If I release this club, look at how the club is turning. It's not really turning over very much. It's kind of just adding dynamic loft versus with a neutral, almost on the weak side grip, the club wants to roll over. It wants to turn over more when I release it. A weaker grip is actually more of a draw bias grip, and a strong grip is more of a fade bias grip. So a lot of people have that backwards. Like I said, it can help. Like a stronger grip can a little bit, but I would never want the strongest I would ever want someone's glove hand. That's really the hand most people are talking about when they're talking about grip strength. Is basically if you can see your last knuckle. If you're just out of dress about to hit the ball, if you can see your last knuckle, I would suggest moving that until it just barely disappears, and then maybe just going back to where you can see that last knuckle. If you can comfortably see it, if you get even stronger than that, at that point is when it really starts. You have to manipulate everything else in your swing. Because if my hand's way over here, the club face is just dead shut. It's dead shut, and I'm either going to have to have a cupped wrist to counteract it, which then just adds all. You're going to have to flip at it. It's not good. Now there are some exceptions. Dustin Johnson's not as strong as I've seen some amateurs get, but he's strong. And he has a lot of the bow, the flexion in his wrist. But how he makes that work, he's a fader of the ball, strong grip, fader of the ball, is, again, he doesn't have much of a rotational release pattern, but he really, really rotates with his body, which keeps everything square. If he had a more standard, body movements and release pattern with that, everything would be pulled dead left with that grip. Personally, I like to keep everything very neutral. I like to see 2 to almost my third knuckle on my glove hand. I just like this hand to come on to the club like real, just naturally, right where it hangs. You don't want to be reaching for the club. Basically, if you let go and see that my hand dropped back here, then I'd have to move it forward to my grip. I know I'm too far away. Where your hand just hangs naturally, that's where you want it. That's just neutral. Going back, basically this is dead perfect where this shaft is, parallel with your target line, with your foot line, right over your foot line. I right there is like really where I want it. Personally, my feel, here, let me get a little bit more in line with the camera. So right there is about perfect. My personal feel, because I have a habit of coming inside, I do like to feel like the club, if anything, is a little outside my hands instead of inside. That's dead square perfect. I like to feel like the club's a little bit here. And then just the flexion move, the shallowing move, boom. Just letting gravity drop that club. I've talked about this before. It almost feels like you're trying to hit your back heel. But when you add in the pressure shift and the rotation, because before the club even gets to the top, before the club even gets to the top, and when it's about 75 way to the top, I'm already beginning to shift onto that front foot. The club's basically starts to go back. By the time it's halfway back, I'm already beginning to get weight into that front foot. It's not everything back and then everything through. No, it's a dynamic motion. It's like throwing something, You're not like when you throw, you're not throwing and stepping at the same time. No, your foot's going first, you stepped, boom, then you throw. Same with the golf swing. You're stepping, boom. You want that that pressure early. That's why it's not everything back, everything through. It's, you can see how before the club is at the top, I'm getting into that front foot. And that's what it is, right into that front foot. The game's easy. Really, you learn some of these swing dynamics and how they relate to the new laws of ball flight. New laws of ball flight are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Another flush one. If you've ever played any other sport, ping pong, tennis, soccer is real obvious. This is a basketball, I know that, but let's pretend this is a soccer ball. Right-handed golfers, all the beginners slice it right, slice it right. Everyone knows your swing path needs to be out to the right to hit a draw, or to correct a slice, you need to feel like it's out to the right to neutralize the slice spin. But think of it like a soccer ball. If I wanted to put a little right to left, little draw spin on this, I'd come in from the inside over here, and I'd want to kick the inside of the ball out to the right to kind of put, that draw spin on the ball. And that's exactly what it is with a golf ball. I'm trying to kick it out to the right to put that kind of draw spin on the ball. The problem is everyone sees the ball go right, so they aim left, and then they end up coming over the top of it. They try to pull it back left. They have a closed club face, and they pull it left, but it still slices because their swing, doesn't matter how much you close your club face, if your swing path is left of it, it's going to slice. Essentially, the club face is responsible for where the ball starts. If my club, let's assume the club face is dead square with the target, right at impact. I'll show you that other strike. It's another flusher. But let's assume that the club face is perfectly straight at my target at the moment of impact. If my club path is moving a little bit out to the right, my ball is basically going to start at the target and draw left of it. If my club face is square at the target, but moving a little bit left, if I aim this way or come over the top a little, my club is moving left and the club face is at the target, it's going to basically start at the target and slice off to the right. So to actually so when you see, people play their big slice into the fairway where it starts down the left and slices back, their club face was quite a bit closed to the target. Their club face was aimed way left, and the ball still slices. But still, so many people think it's their open club face. It's their open club face. So they're still coming over the top, trying to roll their hands over, and they never fix their slice until they just hit a dead straight pull. Because what happens is they rolled their hands over so much, it matched their club path. The best thing you can do if you're a slicer, close everything, drop your back foot back a little bit. You close your shoulders. That's a big one. I see a lot of people, they're set up like this, way out this way. And I'm like, all right, close your setup. And they're like, well, all you did was move your feet. My shoulders are still aimed over here. That's not closing your setup. Closing your setup is closing everything. Your shoulders are responsible for so much. I like to feel like if I'm really trying to hook one, so this is basically my straight shot. My shoulders in reality are a little open to the target, yes, but the feel is almost like this shoulder is kind of pointing straight on a straight ball. If I'm really trying to hook one right to left, I like to feel like my shoulders stay closed. And you can see how it gets my swing path more from the inside out to the right, and it allows everything to close down. Just the opposite. I really want to fade one, aim left. I feel like my shoulders get open at impact, which helps everything move left. You mess around with those feels and you find the happy mediums. If I wanted to hit a big draw right here, One other thing I do is, okay, so this is a normal setup. If I wanted to hit a little 10, 15-yard draw, I'd basically aim. If I wanted to hit a 15-yard draw, I'd aim at least 15 yards right, if not 20 yards right. And then I like to aim my club face about halfway back. So I'll close my club face about halfway back to the hole. And I play the ball back in my stance, just a little, maybe one golf ball. And what that does, if you think about your swing, how it's coming from the inside, starting to straighten out, it straightens out, and then it starts moving back left. So if we need to come from the inside and hit the inside of the ball out to the right to hit a draw, the further back in your stance you have it, the more from the inside that club path is coming. And just the opposite. I play it a little bit more forward, generally, with a fade. Now, there's times where I'm trying to hit a low fade, and I'll play it back in my stance. But I usually need to manipulate things even more. I really have to open up, play it back in my stance, and I feel like I hold the face open. And the lead hand, I can't emphasize enough how important the lead hand in golf is. I mean, the emblem of the glove, as Tiger puts it, matches the back of your club face perfectly. If I need it just a little open, just a little closed. If I need to take loft off of it, I can turn it down. If I need to add loft, I can get that pointing to the sky. It's all in this left hand. Not to mention, think of pulling something, towing a trailer. If you're pulling something, it's very, very stable. The club just wants to swing. The way the club's designed, the way your left hand works, gravity, momentum, it's just a perfect arc. But pushing something, it's a lot easier to come over the top, inside. It's a lot easier. It's basically like towing a camper versus backing a camper up or pushing. Pushing a camper, it would be real easy to jackknife. Pulling it's basic physics. Pulling is always more stable than pushing. So I'm a firm believer that your lead hand is very much your control hand. And in so many tournaments or in so many rounds where my game started to fall apart, I went back to just feeling like my right hand wasn't doing anything but kind of sitting on the club for some stability. I've mentioned this before. All the right hand is doing is throwing. If you're a right-handed golfer, a right-handed person, all you're really doing is a basic golf motion and making an underhand throw. You're basically throwing a ball. You're just throwing the club. That's a basic motion. You're adding some speed and stability. That's super easy. But the precision to strike this ball, then the ground in the middle of the club face, not hit it fat, not hit it thin, not have the club face 1 degree open, 1 degree closed, and also having the right dynamic loft. You don't want to be closing it down too much. You don't want to be scooping it and flipping it into the air. The precision of golf, I think, is all in the lead hand. Now, there are people that do it the other way. There are people that feel it all in their right hand. It's honestly both hands working together, obviously. Both your hands are working together. And there are certain feels where I feel more in my right hand. Like, for example, bunker shots and flop shots. Here's my 60 degree. So if I'm trying to hit a flop shot, face wide open, regrip it, I'm going to feel a lot more like I throw the club head. I'm not trying to do a normal swing. I'm more trying to throw the club head and let it pass my hands to get all the loft on the club. Same in the bunker. I'm just trying to cut the legs out from underneath it with a flop shot. But most full shots, I feel a lot more in my lead hand than my trail hand. And chips, people overcomplicate their short game. It's so easy. The club is designed to pick the ball up in the air. The worst thing you can do is try to bring this club closer to you. Think about it. If my arm is just hanging, my arm can't get any longer than just hanging. They're hanging. You know, they can't get longer than that. That's all you're doing. You're just letting your arms hang and letting the momentum and gravity swing the club. What I see so many people doing is they're trying to hit the ball and pick the ball up in the air like this, and they skull it, they fat it. If you just let the club drop onto the ball, it's going to shoot up into the air with a wedge. And where I like to play, just a basic chip shot, right off my back foot, forward shaft lean, weight's about 50-50, maybe a little bit more on my front foot, you know, and all I'm doing is hinging and holding, as Phil calls it. But it's not just hinge and a rigid hold. You know, it's more of just a hinge and you're just kind of dropping the club. You know, I don't need to throw the club at it. I'm not putting any effort into it. It's just the weight of the club that's falling into it. Another shot I play, everything exactly the same, except for I open the club face just a little bit. I might aim a little bit more left, open the club face, which allows you to use a little bit more bounce. And it'll be, so here's a square face little chip, little square face chip. It'll be a little lower. Little chip shot, pitch shot, whatever you want to call it. Same exact swing, same exact setup, except for maybe just a touch more left, and the club face is open a few degrees. I may have swung a little harder on that one. Here, let me swing a little softer. Club face is open, back of the stance. It's a little bit more of a medium flighted chip. I'm basically always, with chip shots, I'm basically always playing them off my back foot, unless I'm trying to flop it. Now, flop shots, if I have a long carry, you know, like past the back wall, and say the pin's right over the bunker, I might not have a totally flat face, and I might have it a little closer to middle. Like say I had a 40-yard shot that I wanted to throw straight up in the air. You know, I might play it, it's forward of center, and my face is, you know, pretty open. But compared to if I was only going to the camera trying to hit a full swing flop shot, I would open the face even more. And you see what I did there? This is the normal setup. I open the face and have it aiming at the target. The leading edge is straight towards the target. You can see normal. Open the club face, but then have the leading edge of the target. You see where the grip goes? So then I adjust my body to where the club is. Okay, so normal, open towards the target, come over here, and then get down low. Bend your knees. You might even want a little bit wider stance. And you don't want high hands. You want your hands down almost in between your knees. Like if I were to, here's a 7-iron. So I got my 7-iron. If I wanted to hit a flop shot with a 7-iron, I'd have to exaggerate it even more. To open that club 90 degrees, I'd have to come over here. I'd have to get my hands real, real low. This is a tough lie for a 7-iron flop shot. Oh, hold on, let me get that one back. With a little bit of a lie in the rough, these really aren't that hard with a 7-iron. Here we go, 7-iron flop. Oh. I don't think you get much tighter of a lie than a mat. I used to do these just as a trick shot with my 2-iron. There it is. 7-iron flop off of the tightest line known to man. But anyway, it's the same concept. Of course, your 60 degree is a lot easier because it already has all that loft built into it. But it's the same thing. It's setting up normal. Club, open it up, set your body up to that, drop my hands down low, and just throw the club. That was a touch skinny. There it is. I've only played 18 holes in like 5 or 6 months, so I'm a little rusty. Kind of like my wedges. I actually took some apple cider vinegar and stripped all the paint off my wedges. And I'm letting them rust. I keep doing little rust treatments. I'll clean them up more eventually, but I wanted to get them all raw and rusty for this season. Yeah, really the only thing I wanted to talk about was the rubber band effect. Just some more 7-irons real quick. Are we still recording on that out of space? Thank God. I wanted to practice a little today. But also, like I said, the rubber band effect was really the one thing I wanted to cover. And I ended up going off into the entire swing, hitting short game shots. The whole point was golf is pretty easy. I mean, it's one of the more complicated sports on the planet. It actually is. Probably the most complicated sport on the planet. But it's not as hard as a lot of people make it seem. Sure, you need some natural talent and to really learn your hand-eye coordination. That's how you strike the ball like this, or even better. Look, I hit one down there. Actually, I think that was just a weird little chippy thing I did. Wasn't actually swinging, but definitely they weren't all perfect. But like I said, you can, as long as you have the basic fundamentals, a decent grip, a decent setup. Oh, here's another thing. I was talking to someone about anterior versus posterior pelvic tilt. Basically, anterior would be like an overly straight back, butt out, arched. A lot of people think that's what you're supposed to do, a very straight back. And that's not. Actually, so that would be anterior. It's better to have a little posterior pelvic tilt, which is almost like feeling like your belt buckle is getting tucked up into your belly button. A little bit of a slouch back, old man. If you look on tour, you look at Jack Nicklaus. You know, he had very much a little bit of a slouch back. That allows you to have a good turn and get cleared. This is a big cause. Having too much arch and too straight of a back is a big cause of early extension. Amongst other things, it kind of just restricts the way you turn. I've been working on that a little bit, getting, a little bit more of this old man feel. Again, it feels like my belt buckle is getting sucked up into my belly button just a little bit. And stand up tall. I see a lot of golfers, they get their butts way back. They're standing too far from it. And again, that standing too far from it, another big early extender, having your butt sticking out. You want the middle of your hips over your ankles. If anything, I have a habit of getting a little too far back. I constantly am trying to keep those up there a little bit. You don't want to get too far back. Nice setup. Everyone can set up. Just about everyone can set up properly. Everyone can have a fairly neutral grip. Everyone should be able to turn back with their shoulders. And it's okay if you don't have the most flexibility. If you can only get to here with your shoulder turn, and add a little wrist hinge, you're going to get more power, swinging like John Rahm. That's what John Rahm does. He gets a big shoulder turn, but he has like no arm movement. It's all shoulder turn. Boom. You're going to get a lot more power doing that than very little shoulder turn with a big arm swing. The big arm swing, that is about as hard as I can swing like that. And it swung longer than my normal swing. Now, if I try to do the polar opposite, all chest turn, they both feel awkward because they're not my swing, but I could just feel that was so much more powerful. It's all in the chest. It's just boom, falling right into it. And it doesn't take muscle. It takes rhythm to create power and speed. Learn to swing back and forth. And if you have a habit of coming over the top, not only back and forth, but the figure 8 pattern. See how it comes out and it drops in, making one loop, out to in. See the figure 8? Teaches you to get everything syncing up and timed. And then just take that figure 8, I'll try to exaggerate it. Take that figure 8 feel to the range, hit a golf ball. And there's just so much power in rhythm. When everything syncs up just perfectly, the weight of the club. You know, this is a traditionally lofted 7-iron. It wasn't that strike. There was one bad strike on the toe there when I was just, I don't even remember. What did I do? Oh, it was when I was trying to swing with my hands. That's was that strike. Here, let's clean these up though. But what was I saying? Yeah, effortless power. I just feel like I'm turning my shoulders back, picking the club up, letting this happen, and then just falling into my front foot, nice and rhythmic. Falling into my front foot. I'm gonna work on some tempo here, nice and slow, extra slow. Oh, I forgot my feel for a minute. Extra slow, let it drop, and it's falling into my front foot. It's as easy as that. You could play golf all day like that. Turning back, getting my shoulder pointed at the ball, As my shoulder's pointing at the ball, I'm already beginning to fall into the front. The club's falling in back of me. I let it fall as I'm rotating. Boom. Say goodbye to your over the top. I'll try to really exaggerate the shallowing move with this one. Sure, some good players over time end up coming too much from the inside, but it's very rare that I see someone come too much from the inside, unless they were swinging, you know, like this or something to begin with. And even then, a lot of times what happens is when people take it too far inside, you don't have anywhere to go, so the club ends up going steep and then over the top anyway. But if they do end up swinging really flat like this, usually what happens is they're either feigning the club face open really fat, and they start shifting over the top, and they hit a lot of pole slices. It's kind of a fan open to over the top. Everything goes left, club face left, swing path left, pull slice. As opposed to just a great drill, if you're working on taking the club back the right way, put a golf ball a little behind the one you're going to hit, and just try to make that golf ball roll back in a straight line about as slow as you can. And rip it. Pulled that a little bit, but that was as pure as the driven snow. That one was hammered. Wasn't that one on the toe. There was obviously one on the toe. I don't remember hitting that though. That might have been an old ball mark, but that one was dead flush. Just didn't leave much of a mark. Practice your punch shots. And the punch shot it's one of my favorite shots because I've always been a high ball hitter. The way the backswing is just a chest turn, and then your arms and your hands don't really do anything. And you're back in one piece, this triangle that you create with your arms in your chest, one piece, one piece, one piece. This is the full swing. And then at the top, there's a little bit of a break and a hinge. Well, the little knockdown shot, it's just the same thing.